Hello, Assalamu alaikum and good evening. Welcome to another episode of Health is Wealth. I am your host, Shibnam Riaz. Okay, today we have a very interesting program for you. We are going to talk about infectious diseases, and also along with infectious diseases, we are going to talk about, Quiad Azam International Hospital, how it came into being, how it's being run, what facilities are there that are being offered for the general public. And we are very happy to have with us today in the program the Chief Executive and Founder of Quiad Azam International Hospital, Dr. Shaukat Ali Bangish. Thank you very much, Dr. Shaukat, for joining us here today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure is ours. Okay, Dr. Bangish, for the viewers who are not familiar with Quiad Azam International Hospital, or have not heard of it, and this will of course would be a program that will because the purpose of this program is to bring into awareness all those people who may not be knowledgeable of certain things going on in the health scene. First of all, tell us, how did Quiad Azam International Hospital come into being? How long has it been running, and what inspired you to be a founder for this?
Yes, as you know that the healthcare system of our country, unfortunately, is a very poor, and we are hundreds of years behind United States in when it comes to the healthcare system. Though we have progressed a lot in the last few years, and the need of the hospital is always there. If you look at the bigger cities, even in a city like Lahore or Hyderabad, or any bigger city like Ahmedabad, Quiad, all these bigger cities do not, Faisalabad even, or Sialkot, where you have a lot of industry and there is no hospital. So these big cities even doesn't have a world-class hospital where people can go and get a latest and world-class treatment. So we are short of hospitals. We are, healthcare system is poor, and I conceived this idea in 2004 that we should have a hospital in Islamabad. Though we have hospitals here, but in a different location, accessible to a lot of people, nearby suburbs and towns. But the main aim of the hospital was to build something without taking a penny loan from the bank. That was the main financial model that I wanted to give.
I see.
Because a lot of private hospitals have, crores or millions of rupees as a loan on them. And when the hospital administration has to give big interest or money, back to the banks in the morning, then, it puts you under a lot of pressure. You give less salaries to your employees, you charge more from the patients, and sometimes, unfortunately, they give birth to some unethical practices like prolonged hospitalization, undue surgeries, and unethical, lab testing, etc. So in order to change the healthcare system a little bit towards modernization, I also wanted to give a financial model that we can, build a hospital without taking a penny loan. And we have built billions worth hospital as a capital that we have used, and we have not taken a penny loan from the bank. So Alhamdulillah, I conceived this idea in 2004, bought a land. Then I designed this whole thing, hospital, and then it was approved. And the construction part and furnishing and finishing, took about 4 years. And we were operational on the 1st January 2012. So we are into 6th year of, we completed our 6 years of operation. And we don't have any loans. And in the morning, if some poor patient comes, he can't afford, and a room which is worth 8,000 rupees, I can give it for 2,000. I can give it even for free if somebody is deserving. And that's a model I wanted to give. Less stress on me. No money I have to pay to the bank. So that was the main, aim of building a world-class hospital, which should be loan-free with 100% equity.
Right, excellent. I mean, that is fantastic, because that is the need of the hour.
Yes.
In a developing country like Pakistan, we need more people with vision like that, more people like you to come forward and to have this sort of a, this an idea, and then to be able to actually execute it. Tell us about the challenges that came your way.
Well, from 2004 till 2011, when this whole project was completed, there were 2 years of buying land, and the buying land is very difficult. It's a big land mafia and everybody's there. You have to stand there outside Patwari Tehsildar office for hours and hours, and and there are difficulties over there too. And then designing it and getting approval from the competent authorities, and then you need connections for water, electricity. I mean, there are challenges everywhere. But the biggest challenge that I had was that Pakistan was going through a lot of issues of security and safety. There were a lot of terrorism at that time, kidnapping and ransom, things like that. On the other hand, there was energy crisis, less electricity, and so doing all these things in that time was really very difficult. When your own safety is at risk, and then you bring, and invest so much money in Pakistan, so there were a lot of challenges, and then there are a lot of agencies, who have different approvals of different things. Even the boiler operator would not give you a license until you give them something. So I wanted to make an example that no, this is wrong. You can still do a bigger project without taking a loan and without giving a penny in bribery. So Alhamdulillah, I can just claim here that I have built this hospital without giving a penny into bribery, even if I passed the design of the hospital, whether or getting any connection for gas, electricity, or anything that I have done in that place. So we have not given a penny bribery, and we have not taken a penny loan. That's something I can be proud of. Yes,
that is absolutely fantastic. And in fact, one of the questions I was going to ask you was what sets your hospital apart from other healthcare facilities, and I think you've answered that very well. We're going to come back and have lots more questions for you. Don't change the channel. Welcome back to the programme. We have with us Chief Executive and founder of Azam International Hospital, Dr. Shaukat Ali Bangish, who's here with us today. Dr. Bangish, tell us what, let's talk about the emergency facilities there as well. As you were mentioning that the hospital is in a very crowded place and there's lots of traffic there. Road accidents and the management of patients, especially those who are needy, what happens there?
Yeah. We are at a junction, right on the main GT road and at a junction of all exits to all motorways. So whenever there is an accident happens on the road, most of these people are brought into the hospital.
Okay.
We give treatment to everybody.
Okay.
I think we should look after them, even if we don't know whether they can pay or they cannot, whether they have relatives with them or they don't have. There are a lot of people that there's a run over, and then the person is, lying on the floor. They are brought to the hospital,
and there's no one with them?
We don't know who they are.
Okay.
So we give them, life-saving care, everything, and then obviously police is involved and things like that. So we have round-the-clock emergency.
Right.
Not only round-the-clock emergency, we have round-the-clock radiology, lab services. We have round-the-clock dialysis services. So we have, highly qualified doctors available round the clock. Then the senior doctors are on call. So we have very good emergency services in that hospital. And that was actually the main aim of building that hospital.
Right.
We used to think, something happens here, where to go? Which place we have to go? If something happens right here in this room, you take about 20 minutes to think which hospital is, where I can get a good cardiac care, or if there's injury, where they will look after. Is there any trauma center nearby? So that was the main aim of the hospital. That we should have good emergency services in case of any heart attack, crisis, shock, arrest. Then you should, be able to go to some world-class hospital.
Of course. You know, and the best thing is that because the vision that you've had for this hospital, the way you've started and the approach that you have, of course, that's why the whole mindset is there, to keep the patient first and look after them. I think that's absolutely wonderful. Tell us about the doctors who are working at your hospital. What sort of clearance do they have to go through?
Well, we have set, credentials for these doctors. We have a credential committee, and these doctors has to be qualified in their respective field of interest. So they should be able to work in that place. Most of our doctors are highly trained from abroad. We also have local trained doctors who are very well experienced.
Right.
And there are some departments like orthopedics, general surgery, pediatrics, neurosurgery, gynae. It's a state of the art, that I would say people don't have to go abroad for treatment. They can get almost everything here.
Right.
We have just, finished over 1,200 knee replacements in the hospital in 6 years' time. And our first liver transplant is in next 3 or 4 days, and then the bone marrow transplant we are going to start next month, inshallah. And then we have already started kidney transplant, beside hundreds of angioplasties and bypass surgeries, deliveries and complicated vascular surgeries that we are already performing.
Right.
So in 6 years' time, alhamdulillah, no institution in the world have done all these specialties along with all the transplants services, including liver transplant. So I'm glad that, alhamdulillah, we were able to do something for our country in this short period of time.
Okay, let's talk about charity work as well that's going on with the hospital. As you know, there have been recent natural disasters in the form of the earthquake and of 2005 and the floods 2010. Disaster management, how ready are we as a nation, and when it comes to healthcare facilities, what do we need to do, and what does your hospital offer?
We as a nation is really not ready for any disaster management. If there's a big accident, road traffic accident, or if there's a big bomb blast, God forbid, and there are 50 to 70 or 100 of injuries, it's they are taken to hospitals where they are not really prepared for that. So that's where the dilemma, starts. Quiad Azam International Hospital, we have special corridors of 12 feet, and we have like oxygen point at every 20 feet. And with the instant of time, we can open up 100 to 200 bed hospital without disturbing rest of the hospital.
Okay.
If, God forbid, the country is at war with someone and the army needs additional beds or hospital, we can open up a emergency hospital for them within an instant of a time. So we have incorporated all those things in our hospital, or or the bed should be embedded in the walls, and then the moment there is some disaster or emergency situation, you can just open up the beds. Now, in 2005 earthquake or 2010 floods, Quiad Azam International Hospital worked a lot. We were in a designing phase at that time, and we opened up a camp, and we kept about 300 children and women from earthquake, especially from Kashmir, and they were like on our premises for a year and a half. Right. We built a college school for them, so their year is not wasted. And we still have about 13, 14 earthquake children who didn't have any parents. They're still with us, and we are looking after them all these years. And but most of these people, we settled them, and we built the houses for them, and they went back. But we still have 14, 15 children with us. In 2010, when there was a flood, Quiad Azam International Hospital worked a lot. We worked so much that even Pakistan Air Force gave us C-130 planes so we can take the food and other medical supplies to those places. It is the responsibility, I think, for all citizens, to help, their. And I was surprised that, that how few percentage of people could not be looked after by us,
Right.
Yeah. And I'm sure the whole nation, did a lot, but there's more can be done in these kind of situations.
Exactly. That the passion is there, the will is there. We just need direction, with facilities available. Tell us about
I was actually, everybody was telling me, you are building such a huge project,
right,
and such a huge task ahead of you. How can you look after 300 women and children on your premises. It costs a lot of money and time, because I know with my only 4 or 5 staff, in 2005, preparing them breakfast in the morning for 300 people, then lunch and then dinner, and then they were all injured mostly, taking them to different doctors. We were not operational at that time, so we were taking them to another hospitals. So looking after them, and then, the pillow and the blanket and the clothes and all these things, it was a lot of work for a year and a half, besides doing all this project. But then, we have to be role models for others. We have to tell them this is our responsibility. We have to do it. So, I don't think that I have felt any short of money, funds, or time, for all this. And I think I take pride that I was able, thanks God that I was able to do something, in that times. And I still really myself get, inspiration from that.
Okay, and another thing, that is unique about your hospital is the architecture. So tell us about that.
Well, it's a state-of-the-art hospital, very modern hospital. It has a lot of things that are unique in it, We have our own sewage treatment plant. Our air conditioning of one room, ICU room, is separate from the other room, and then our OR's air conditioning is separate. There are a lot of things to prevent, infections in these patients, and then we have IP telephony system, and there are a lot of things in that. But the whole hospital is basically designed by me. And though I'm not an architect, I've never built a house, but I read books and I discussed with the concerned specialist. And, after reading the American Hospital Code book, I designed the whole thing because I feel that there is not many competent architecture in hospitals in Pakistan. And then I seen different hospitals, and I'm American trained, so I just know about the hospitals there. So I visited a lot of hospitals, and this is how I designed it.
So you went with a practical approach because you knew exactly what your hospital needs to cater to. So that's why you were able to have that clear...
Being a doctor, I knew what should be the traffic flow. So the function relationship of the departments, where should be the emergency, and when the emergency comes, people need either, sick patient either needs to go to the OR or to the ICU, or they go to get a radiology workup. So right below the emergency, there is radiology, and right above emergency, there are ORs and ICUs. So, if you build ORs and ICUs on the 10th floor, and your ER is on the 1st floor or a ground floor, then the elevator, if somebody presses all these buttons and patient is bleeding, it wastes your time. So the ORs and the ICU should be right above the ER, so you save time, So the function relationship of department is very important. And being a doctor, I probably was able to deliver a better architectural design, as compared to, some of the architects, that are available.
Okay. Right now we're going to go for a short break. Do not change the channel. When we come back, we're going to talk about infectious diseases. Okay, welcome back to the program. Dr. Bangesh, we spent a lot of time speaking about the hospital, its working, what facilities are available to people who are, who are not familiar with what's going on and what that can be done for them. Also, the emergency facilities you were talking about, state of the art, and looking after people who are in need, and also people who are underprivileged, who cannot afford medical treatment. They go through an evaluation system as well. Now let's talk about, this part of the program is about infectious diseases. And because you are a consultant of infectious diseases, how much of a health burden is it in Pakistan?
Yeah, Pakistan is full of infections, basically, if you look at it, being thickly populated, poor nutrition, poor financial condition, infectious disease basically is the diseases spread by microorganisms like viruses, bacteria, fungi, parasites. And Pakistan is full of, a lot of people die because of tuberculosis, fevers, typhoid fever, malaria, dengue, and so many other infections, you know, hepatitis B, C. And this specialty is very rare in Pakistan. You will find a lot of cardiologists, you will find a lot of gastroenterologists, you will find a lot of neurologists, you know, endocrinologists, but infectious disease actually is a very rare specialty.
Which is ironic because, as you just said, the country is
Pakistan is full of
with infectious diseases.
That's right, and most of the people die of infections. You know, most of 90% people in intensive care unit die of infections. You know, they're all in septic shocks and different infections. They get it in. You know, so there are very few people actually in Pakistan from this specialty. You know, I started this specialty for the first time to this part of the world in Islamabad, Rawalpindi, and covered this part of the area. Okay. There was one in Lahore, Dr. Faisal Sultan and Dr. Naseem Salahuddin in Karachi. So we were the 3 specialists actually in the whole country. Okay. Now we are about 7 or 8 or 10, you know.
Still just 7 or 8 or 10 in the whole country?
In the whole country, yes.
Okay.
In the whole country. And I think we are only like 2 in Islamabad, and which covers all KPK and, you know, central Punjab and Islamabad, Rawalpindi area. So, and you can see all these common infections, you know, so much malaria, typhoid, HIV, AIDS, you know, and diabetic foot infections, wound infections, and meningitis, pneumonias, all these, you know, anywhere where there's a bacteria or virus involved or there's a role of antibiotic, that's where infectious disease specialist comes in.
Okay. With that, you know, you just saying that, it brings to my mind the phenomena of people with, you know, self-medication, and then self-medication when it comes to antibiotics. What is that? I mean, how can you sensitize the viewers to the dangers, to what's that?
Well, it's unfortunate, you know, that the inappropriate use of antibiotics or, you know, unjust use of these and the readily availability of these antibiotics. You know, anybody can go to any pharmacy store and get these, and self-medication has caused a lot of resistance. And we are facing that dilemma, that there are a lot of bacteria and there are a lot of infections, and we cannot really treat them because they are resistant to almost any antibiotic, especially even the bigger known broad spectrum antibiotics. And the biggest problem also comes in, and in Pakistan is a lot of life-saving medications along with antibiotics are not even registered in this country. They are used in America, they are used in UK, and then you can save a life of a patient. You cannot, because they are not available, they are not licensed. And sometimes even there are some medications, like some medications of tuberculosis, those medications are readily manufactured in Pakistan, but they are not available for local people. They are all exported. And people, you know, how many people die of tuberculosis in this country? And multi-drug resistance is a big problem. And we have medications that are manufactured here but not available for our pharmacies. So this is unfortunate, and I'm sure that the government and the authorities should really think about this thing. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so we find, you know, many people when they have a cold or they have the flu, first thing is the differentiation between the cold and the flu is something that is not very, you know, common here. And then they'll all of a sudden start taking antibiotics because so-and-so took antibiotics. Tell our viewers about, you know.
Most of these, you know, common cold and flu are actually viral diseases. So you need a lot of fluids and, you know, some, you know, if you have fever, just some, you know, paracetamol, stuff like that. But yes, people start taking antibiotics from the beginning, and that, you know, is not indicated, not necessary. So, but there are situations where you have superinfection and then you need antibiotics. So I think the best thing would be to consult an appropriate doctor for that. If the patient or a person is not getting better. But yes, it's a need of the hour that we should control use of inappropriate, you know, prescriptions for antibiotics. Proper doses, proper antibiotics, you know, it's important. Even I think the failure of a lot of infections in this country, especially tuberculosis, is probably the patients and the physicians. For patients not taking the medications properly, and for physicians not writing a prescription properly.
Okay,
You know,
right.
so these are the two things actually which has spread tuberculosis in this country, in my opinion, rather than the poor nutrition and overcrowding and stuff like that we blame on.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. As you mentioned before as well, that your hospital is also going to have the first liver transplant in your hospital.
Inshallah.
So, what a person who's undergoing transplant, what do you have to look out for in that person for when it comes to infectious diseases and other things as well? What are the challenges? And many people find find it quite overwhelming to when they're thinking of where and how to get a liver transplant done. So
yes, see, unfortunately, most of our people used to go abroad, China, India, to get transplant done. And Pakistan has actually 0% share in medical tourism, at this time. And we are, all working hard to, encourage and start medical tourism in Pakistan, especially for liver transplant or chemotherapy or, bypass surgeries or knee replacements, coming from abroad and to get it done here. It will save a lot of money for people and for a lot of even insurance companies. Now, for liver transplant, there are few centers in Pakistan that they do it, but it's very difficult. It's very expensive, and then you have to have a donor for that, and you have certain requirements for that. And then the people, when they travel abroad, it costs them a lot of money with the attendants and the families. They're staying there and their follow-ups. So we are starting liver transplant and bone marrow transplant because see, for bone marrow transplant, the appointment dates are like 2022. And 80% people can live. So if we can save life, and if they are going to wait for 2022, they're not going to live that long. So that's why we would like to start bone marrow transplant so we can save lives, and give help our people. In Quiad Azam International Hospital is starting in the next week. We will have a few liver transplants, inshallah, and teams from abroad are coming. The senior faculty, they'll be observing and watching, and our local surgeons and the team, and I hope, inshallah, we all pray for its success.
Exactly. We wish you the best of luck in that.
And we have
as well.
also kept the cost to a very low, as low as we can,
Right.
so it could be affordable to a lot of people.
Okay. You mentioned the ICUs also being a place where you said 90% of the patients ending up getting infected. What's going on there?
Well, eventually, ICU is something, a hospital is actually judged by what kind of emergency they have and how is their critical care, service delivery. Right. So, and I'm proud that our ICUs are like comparable to any best ICUs in the world because we have antibacterial sheets, anti-static flooring, and very spacious rooms. And every ICU room has a daylight because that helps prevent ICU psychosis, a condition which is important for quick healing of these patients. And then we have attached bathrooms and everything. 90% of people, or majority of these people in ICU do die of infections. So you have to have a good infectious disease backup. Because there's a lot of resistant bacteria, people are on ventilator, they have IV lines, they have a Foley catheter, and they get all type of infections, highly resistant infections. So this specialty actually government needs to encourage, and government needs to introduce these specialties undergraduate and postgraduate training, so in future this is the need of the hour actually.
Right. With your experience and, of course, the satisfaction that you're getting with your hospital up and running and you being able to achieve the things that you've set out to in your vision for doing that, are you thinking of opening any other hospitals in Pakistan at the moment, or anything in the pipeline?
A lot of people tells me, that I should open branches, Actually, I've offered, and it's open and offer to anyone, I offered this to the Chamber of Commerce in Sialkot, You have so much industry, you have so much money over there, but you don't have a good hospital. People are dying on the road. They have to go to Lahore if they have a cardiac arrest. So you have an airport, why don't you build a good world-class hospital? We'll give you free design, we'll give you free, help, and all you need is a 30, 40 canal of land and build a hospital, and we'll give you everything for free. So for me to start building a hospital, then it will take my time actually. It won't it will be more of a business. Then I want to consolidate this project, but also I would like to help. We help a hospital in Saudi Arabia. We give them our full architectural help, and they were offering us big money, and I said no. We don't think that everything is done for money. We will help you. So I invite everybody to come, take our design, and start building hospitals. If you build a hospital in Haripur, you build one hospital in Jhelum, one in Sialkot, one in Hyderabad, one in Quetta. Pakistan have 8 hospitals like Quiad Azam. I think the whole healthcare system will change. So we'll do that. And if I have time in life, and I'll probably think of building, inshallah.
Well, the main thing is having the passion, and when a person embarks on a labor of love, it becomes so much more, because people actually they join you in that, in that positivity and in that vision, because inside maybe there are lots of people who want to do something positive, and they're just looking for the right sort of role model and the right opportunity, and then they say, okay, right, wonderful, this is...
You can't do it without passion.
Of course.
These things are done. Doing, big things happens very, rarely. I see a hospital 25 years ago, Shifa International was built. And then this hospital, Quiad Azam, is built. And I don't really see in next 10, 20 years, a private hospital of this level or magnitude will be built. It's very difficult. You have, the passion has to be there. And then obviously with passion, fear of Allah is very important, because we are dealing with human lives. And my only message to my young doctors and everybody, listen, when you come to this field of medicine, you have to think of one thing. You don't have father, you don't have mother, you don't have wife, you don't have children. All you have is patience. Your patient will need you at middle of night, at times when you are like tired and exhausted, at times when you have big plans for a party, and at next of the moment an emergency will come in. So you have to understand this thing, that you don't have any other relations but patience. So if you can go with that, motive behind, then you can, come to this profession. Otherwise, you can just go to another profession. So this is very important, that human life is very important. And that's why, it says if you save one life, you save the life of a mankind, and you kill one person, you kill the whole mankind. So this is so important, when our dear ones are in the hospital, loved ones are there, they are dying, and, it's very difficult to watch.
And at that time, anybody who helps you out is just like an angel, really, to be very honest. For at that time when you're so vulnerable that you have a close family member or a loved one who's hanging between that, the life and death, then you do look at people to be absolutely saviors. That's very true. So your doctors, because there's, sometimes you have the consultant and the patient ratio, which is disproportionate. How is that then managed, and how can you ensure that patients are getting enough time?
The population lot more than actually the doctors that are available, especially the qualified ones. When you have a qualified doctor, everybody wants to see that. We try to accommodate everybody, but not to compromise the care of the ones that we are already seeing them or following them, So I think for that is expansion, and then the more doctors, incorporating more doctors in those specialties. I think this is up to the doctor, how much he can be. The ability is one thing, but availability is very important. If a doctor is able, but he's not available, he carries no value. It's totally zero if he's not available. So in our hospital, I tell my doctors, you have to be available. Even if you are less able, but you are available, you will do better for the humanity than you are able and you are not available. So availability is important in our profession. Patient can come anytime, but I'm sure, this is the law of, nature, or Allah. He never gives you more burden than what you can really carry, as per Quran. So I think, you know, we can manage. I still give time to my family. I have breakfast with my mom and I have dinner with my mother. You know, she lives with me, and you know, with such a busy schedule, the only infectious disease guy, maximum number of inpatients in the hospital, but I manage time, so for family, for doctors, for hospital. So I think if there's a will, there's a way. Yeah.
That's great. That's really heartening. Okay, so on back to, you know, the infectious diseases, because many people in Pakistan are not even aware that there is an infectious disease consultant that they can see. They're probably just seeing anybody who's available, you know, as we pointed out. Diabetes is a big sort of high proportion of people suffering from diabetes in Pakistan. Many do not take their medicines properly. Many are not looking after themselves. You mentioned diabetic foot. Can you tell our viewers about the dangers about that?
You know, diabetes is one disease that touches almost every area of medicine. It can affect your brain, it can affect your gastroenterology, you know, stomach and intestines, your skin infections, diabetic foot, you know, and heart attacks, you know, kidney failure. Most common cause of people going in dialysis is probably diabetes. So it touches every area of medicine. Now, I've seen a lot of people whose legs are amputated, you know, and they are disabled for the rest of their lives. Not only that, they are burden on the society because they are on a wheelchair, and there has to be some attendant with them all the time to help them, you know, taking them here and there and changing their clothes and, you know, everything. So there are a lot of unnecessary amputations too, because these infections are treatable. If you treat them at the early stage, you know, and look at them, you can save lives, you know. So proper use of antibiotics, proper, you know, care of the foot, that is very important. So that awareness actually has to come, you know, and we're trying our best, you know. And I think that in my whole 25 years of career in Pakistan, I've hardly sent like 1 or 2 patients hardly for amputation. You know, when they comes to us, you know, we are able to save. Unless they come in a very late stage, you know, where nothing could be done, everything is, all muscles are destroyed, and, you know. So I think people can, lives, you know, or amputations could be saved, you know, with a better control of diabetes and
being more proactive
and treating the infections at the right time.
Right. Unfortunately, we've run out of time for the program, but Dr. Shaukat Ali Bangash, thank you so much for being with us here today. Would you like to give a message for the viewers who are watching today, who, you know, for the hospital as well, and, you know, what facilities are available? We've spoken about it a lot in the program, but...
Well, you know, my message to the nation would be that if one man can design, build a state-of-the-art hospital, why collectively as a nation we cannot change the healthcare system of this country? And it just needs dedication and a commitment. And my message to the government is, if all our problems will be solved if we provide education to our masses. We can finish this menace of terrorism, you know, if we spread education, and education is available to everybody. And if we can provide interest-free loans to people who build schools and colleges and hospitals, we can really change the education system and the healthcare system of this country, because building these good education institution and a hospital takes a lot of capital. And it's very, you know, and it has to be, you know, capital at a level where you can build a state-of-the-art institutions. So I think if government, you know, think of this thing, or any private banks, you know, can start a program giving interest-free loans to these people who wants to do something for the country, I think we can change the healthcare system. And the education system of this country. That probably is my message.
Words indeed. Thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and with that we come to the end of today's program. Really, really informative. So much that is being done. Often we concentrate on the negative aspects of, you know, what's going on with the healthcare situation. But then there are people like, you know, Dr. Bangash, who have contributed in such a huge way. And that's, as he said, you know, why can't we come together as a nation and prove ourselves to, you know, be constructive and get ahead in all those challenges that we face. So until next week, stay happy, stay healthy. Bye-bye.